Hello everyone, welcome to Rostrum Legal. Just wait for let's wait for some more people to join in, and then we'll start with the.
Yeah, it takes some time.
Sure. So if you can hear me, please type yes in the chat box. Hello everyone, how are you all? Please use the chat box to communicate with us. It would be great if you all can tell me like where you're from, what do you do, so that will help us, framing some questions for this webinar. Hello Prachi, hello Kedar, hello Srijan. Hello Suprajyoti, how are you? Hello Prachi again. So Prachi is working as associate with Orbit Law. Great to have you here, Prachi. Yeah, I think we have a good number of people to begin. So once again, welcome to Rostrum Legal. Uh, Good evening, Sovik. In the past few months, we have worked with thousands of law students and law graduates in helping them appear for different law entrance exams, especially for LLM. And thankfully, a lot of them made it to some top colleges. So now after that, like the most common query which I get from most of them is what kind of jobs they can get after doing their LLM, and like what are which specialization should they pursue, and like do LLM programs in some of the top universities offer placement opportunities to their LLM candidates. So to answer these questions, we have planned a series of webinars, like especially on different career options in law and how to get a job in different legal sectors, uh, especially for freshers. So today's the webinar is in association with Institute of Laws and Legal Studies, Institute of Legal Research, Legal Studies and Research, GLA University, Mathura, and the topic is how to get a corporate job after LLM. And we have some amazing panelists who have several years of experience in working in the field of corporate law, and also in hiring candidates for their respective firms and companies. So our first guest today is veteran wing commander Shivrama Prakash sir. Shivrama sir has commenced his career with a short stint in Central Bank of India, and then he moved to the Indian Air Force, where he spent first 7 years in the administrative branch as an air traffic and radar controller. Then he moved into the judge advocate department, where he worked for another 16 years before taking premature retirement, and then started his journey in the corporate world. He's a 360-degree multifaceted lawyer with experience in several aspects of corporate law. Currently, Shivram sir is working as a corporate counsel in Cisco, Bangalore. Hello, sir. Welcome to Rostrum Legal.
Thank you, Anurag. Thanks for the nice words.
Thank you. And our second guest is Anu Monga, ma'am. She holds a master's in law from NUS Singapore. She's also an alumna of Campus Law Center, Delhi University, and Lady Shri Ram College. She has more than 15 years of experience in advising clients on TMT laws, competition law, and international trade laws. She's currently working as a partner at Anant Law. Welcome to Rostrum Legal, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Anurag. Thank you.
And
Thank you for this.
And finally, we have with us Dr. Avinash Dadish, Professor Dadish. He's the Dean of Institute of Legal Studies and Research at the GLA University, Mathura. In the past, he has also worked at CCI, ENY, and Deloitte. Avinash sir is also has a having a unique experience of both teaching and studying in Indian as well as foreign institutions. So, welcome, sir. Welcome to this webinar, and thanks a lot for the idea behind doing this webinar.
Thank you, Anurag. Thank you.
So, as we have all gathered, as I said, like the title of the webinar is how to get a corporate job after LLM. So, let me quickly explain the agenda. So, like I have framed a couple of questions which I'm going to ask the panelists, and since we have invited all of you, our audience here, so we would want you to ask questions as well, which our guests can answer, which will help you, like if you have any personal questions with respect to your career, so you're free to ask those questions. But like we'll open the question round at the end of the session, so we'll have around 15 to 20 minutes depending on the questions. So you guys can ask questions as well. So let's begin. And my first question is to you, Shivram sir, that with it's again like with with respect to your experience as a in-house lawyer. So I would want you to explain what what kind of work the industry expects from an in-house counsel, and also like when you hire freshers or fresh law graduates, what skills do you expect them to have as a lawyer to work in a corporate in-house job.
Thanks, Anurag. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're perfectly
Okay,
audible.
okay. Thank you. So let me first talk about the first point, that is, what does a young lawyer do when he joins as in-house counsel in any corporate company? So we need to see it, through two lenses basically. One is joining a big company and one is joining a relatively smaller company. So when I say big company, I actually mean those huge MNCs which have multiple lawyer, not multiple, in fact hundreds of lawyers. Like Cisco itself has got about 500 odd lawyers. There are companies with even 1,000 plus lawyers. So they are those big companies. There are small companies like my previous company where I was working, IBS Software Services. We had only about 4 or 5 lawyers. So they are smaller companies. The exposure is quite different in both these kinds of setup. So if you join a
Hmm.
bigger company, what happens is you are basically a small or even a smallest fish in the pond actually to begin with. So you would actually be
Hmm.
doing initially they would train you step by step actually and bring you up to speed in a gradual manner. The smaller companies have to bring you up to speed very fast because their numbers are less, and obviously they have to make you turn around work properly. So in a bigger company, let's talk of the bigger company first. So if you join as a fresher in a bigger company, normally what you would be doing is you would possibly be sort of assisting people in initially getting the contract, something like a legal analyst job basically. Like in Cisco itself, we can say that we have got a tool which where we store all the contracts. So the senior
Hmm.
contract negotiators, they work on the contracts, they get the contracts done. After that, it has to go into the system for approval, sign off by the various people who need to, stakeholders who have to sign it off. So that kind of work is actually done by the freshers. It's we call it, it's not an LPO model, but it's an in-house LPO model, you can say, where they
Hmm.
assist the senior counsel in getting all this. So what happens is, by virtue of doing this, they also get to see all the contracts which are being negotiated. So in sort of like, while I might be using them to do a clerical work, I'm actually training them because I'm handling them all the contracts, and irrespective of the value of the contracts, because they're going to put all those things into the tool. So those who have a good interest, or those who are able to pick up things fast, they will be able to go through the contracts, and gradually at a particular period of time they would also understand. There are quite a few of them who even speak to the senior counsel and ask them questions as to why this is written like this, why this is written like that, because that's their learning curve, because they know that at some stage they will leave that particular role and jump to the role where the negotiating counsel sits. So that's how we do that. And then after that, what happens is once about say you can say about year and a half or so, which after they have spent in this particular role and they have got exposure to all kinds of contracts, then we start making them do the NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. We start giving them, especially the ones where they need to talk to the customer when there is a pushback on a particular clause or a negotiation has to happen. So you basically build them to sort of face the customer and face to the end client, and sort of understand how to talk to them and how to get things your way, or how to balance it out, to ensure that it is a good or win-win for both the sides and all that. So they learn that. Once they've done with the NDA portion and they are fairly okay, then they move to, of course, the promotions keep coming up. I'm not talking of that particular piece. I'm only talking about the work piece which happens. Then we start putting them into smaller agreements, small dollar value agreements, where the clients are also relatively easy. The manager understands, the general counsel would understand which are the easy clients. Obviously, they would not put a fresher or a person who's relatively new in front of tough clients, because they would be handled by the more senior folks. So they do the easy agreements. After that, it's time to bring them up to a level where they can also handle the bigger agreement. So at that stage, what is done is normally they are made to sit as a second chair along with the senior counsel. So the senior counsel is negotiating. You just sit along with that person, observe, and maybe even assist him or her in drafting whatever changes the client wants and all that. And once you have sort of mastered, and the senior clients or senior counsels also feel that you have sort of attained a particular level of expertise, then slowly you start getting those senior contracts to negotiate. Obviously, while I'm talking all these things, a person would have actually moved 2 or 3 companies also when he has sort of graduated or moved up the ladder. But I'm just basically giving you a sort of a broad highlight on how a person moves up to the in the ladder. Then what happens is, in the meantime, while you're doing all this contracting, because in-house counsel job is almost 75% sales. Basically, most of us support sales, and when we need any expert advice, obviously we go to outside counsels like Anant Law and all different firms which are empaneled in those particular companies. But at the same time, you also need your own in-house counsels to also be aware of various compliance and regulated laws, especially with respect to your company. Like if you're a pharma company, you want your counsel to know about the pharma laws. If you're in a telecom domain, you need your counsels to, because 2 things. One is you have to know the subject because you're negotiating with your clients. Secondly, if you're going to any in-house counsel for help also, you also need to understand the language that the in-house counsel is speaking to you, especially in terms of advice. So that particular thing also happens. So what happens is, slowly from instead of doing 100% sales contract, that particular lawyer is assigned 10 to 25% of his time is also devoted to compliance. And that's how you gradually build up that person's career. So what happens is, at the end of the day, when a person has reached about 10 to 12 years of service in the legal in-house counsel domain, then he or she is ready to become a general counsel, because now he or she understands the entire gambit of how councils work happens. And while all this is happening, in between, what good general councils do is, they also place 1 or 2 small junior resources under these councils once they have reached that stature of 10 or 12, basically to enable them to build up people managerial skills and all that, so that they can be promoted to the next role. So that is how it happens in the bigger companies. In smaller companies, what happens is, when you go there, within it is a little rapid. Of course, their turnover may be little less as compared to the bigger companies, but yes, contract is a contract. If it is, even if it is a $100 contract, or if it is a 100 million contract, for every company, you cannot mess around with the contract, because if you run into any litigation later on, it should not happen that your contracting was faulty or something. So obviously that particular piece is taken care of, but the general counsels there are in a hurry because they want to bring up the younger person to speed. So you have to work a little more harder. But there is an advantage there. The advantage there is, if you are 2 of you who have passed out from the same college, one has gone to a bigger company and one has gone to a smaller company, within 3 years, when you start analyzing, you might possibly realize that the guy who went to the smaller company, his horizon is more broader than the one who went to the bigger company. So but obviously the guy who went to the bigger company must have made more money than the guy who went to the smaller company. So these are the plus and minuses which happen. But then if one looks at long term, my guidance to everyone would be, if you're starting as in-house, ideally you start with a small company, because your exposure is more, because you can always run the race later on once your body is heated up completely. Yeah.
So thank you for all the insights. So you shared what kind of work is it's a great It was a great insight on like different sizes, company size, and what kind of work mostly people do. So as a fresher, if I want to get into either a small company or a bigger company, so as a hiring manager, like what would you expect from me? So if you need somebody in your team as an entry level lawyer, so what skills like would you want me to have?
Yeah, so when you're looking at a fresher, basically, every manager will look at only two simple skills. One is because he or she is a lawyer, they would generally ask, simple questions with respect to law, just to understand how basic or how knowledgeable that person is with respect to that particular question. It may not be very, it will not be a trick question or something. It will just be a general, you can say, simple questions or law. Because obviously, if since that person is fresher, you can't ask that person any question with respect to how you run the business, because he's a fresher, he or she is a fresher, and they're going to join and learn. Then the second thing which any hiring manager would look is communication skills, basically, because end of the day, at some stage you are going to put that person in front of a customer. So it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that the person should have 100% or should get 100% marks in communication skills. So long as that person is able to communicate, and the manager feels that over a period of time whatever is deficient can be polished, the manager would hire that person. That's how they do it, actually.
Great, 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 great. Thank you so much, sir, for the insights. Now, my next question is to you, Anu, ma'am. Same again, like the same way, like you have worked several years in as a lawyer in mostly law firms, and especially in corporate sector. So, like, how is it like, like what's the journey as a corporate lawyer, when you start as a fresher, and how does one goes up? And also, like, what kind of, what do you expect from a fresher when they are joining you as your juniors?
Thank you, Anurag, for the question. I'd say that to a large extent, it's quite similar to what Prakash sir just mentioned, even at law firm level. Because when you join a mid-tier or a small law firm, the the graduation of the entry level associate will be faster, because you'd be expected to dabble with a lot of things and cater to a lot of more assignments than just paralegal oriented work, because the resources are less, and therefore you're expected to deliver quite a lot. Therefore, the journey of the entry level associate will be at a much faster pace if you were to join a mid tier or a small term law firm. However, if one were to similar to, I think, an in-house role, as one moves forward, maybe after year three or year four, your graduation into a larger law firm will probably be more meaningful, because then you've accelerated your growth in your 0 to 3, and you'd be able to do a little more contribution to the kind of assignments and sort of broaden your horizon on that parameter. There's no right or wrong way of doing anything, so to each their own, really. I subscribe to that. This is part of my journey. I'm a first generation lawyer myself, and therefore I started off with working with the standing counsel, because I wanted to understand what are the implications of litigation on corporate law before I'd venture into corporate. And from there, dabbled with, worked at a mid-tier law firm, worked with several professionals and different partners at that firm, understood what is my niche, where I'd like to specialize over a period of years, then undertook my masters at Singapore in that area of law, and from there sort of graduated into big law or a larger law firm sort of scenario. But now, having set up our own firm, coming to your next question, which is either at those firms where I was and where we were inducting people into our team, and now at our firm, which we've set up recently, the things that we as law firm look at people when we are inducting them, either as interns or maybe even as fresh graduates, is the person should have sincerity. They should have the willingness to sit and learn, because I don't expect a fresher to be a subject matter expert, because if they were, then there are no questions asked. as long as the person is sincere and holds the integrity to spend that time with the seniors and is willing to act as a sponge and absorb as much as possible while at work, I think those are the characteristics that we look for in professionals. And then we are willing to invest the time that we would like to make that professional grow. We take it as a given that just like ourselves as first generation lawyers, people may not necessarily know what is their ultimate area of specialization. So at least at Anantlo, we would say that you're given that period, that grace period of about up to 2 years, where you can experience and work with different partners at the firm, and then know which area you'd like to specialize. The things change a little bit when you've undertaken a master's, because then the expectation is that to a large extent you have some subject matter expertise.
Okay.
And therefore when you enter into the legal profession, even if it is as a fresher at that point in time, you would be looked at certainly from a different parameter than a fresher. And I think the key to all of this is really that one should intern, and intern at places where you like, in the sense the subject matters that you like working on, not what is good in terms of what makes
Mhm.
headlines. Because only, and I'm a firm believer in this, only when you like doing what you do, it's no longer a job, and it doesn't feel like a 9 to 5, that 5 o'clock and I'm shut off and I need to get to do what I really like doing. So those are the key things that come to our mind when we hire people and we are looking at candidates.
Great. So again, like another question which arised out of like curiosity. So like like past like couple of years, pandemic, the jobs are not there, and so most of the law students which I've seen, in law graduates, undergrads, in like past 2 years, even like CLAT taker, the number of CLAT takers increased, CLAT PG takers increased in last year and this year as well. So most of the people who are graduating from their postgrads are like 5+1 graduates. They don't have a experience in between. So what do you advise them to do? And like, it's a very big challenge because as we were discussing before the webinar, there are like thousands of people completing their LLMs. Number of jobs is very less. So what like what should they do to just get that expertise? What you expect from an LLM graduate?
If you're asking me that question, then I'd say internship is the best method, especially if you're a first generation lawyer, because that allows you the time to sort of uh, and not just those 3 weeks and 4 weeks internships. Once you've undertaken a 3 weeks and 4 week internship, if you like that place enough, you must go back to the person who hired you in first place and seek a long term internship at that place, because only then you'd be able to sort of get to know the systems, the asks of the practice, the law practice, and be able to do meaningful value addition, not just to your career trajectory, but also contribute towards the firm itself. So internships and perhaps long term at that. One thing that I feel a lot of students do a mistake, so to speak, in is that they look at internships one after another. So it's like booking a calendar. So 1st August to 31st August, I'm working here. 1st September to 31st September, I'm working somewhere else. So I don't see much. I don't relate to that too much, because I don't understand how can somebody hop on from one place and hop off to the other, because there's no real value add that there will be. You'll just keep on researching different questions. You'd never be part of a larger system, and you'll never really be able to appreciate where your interests lie the most. You're just doing it because that's the requirement of
Yeah.
either your curriculum or your peers. So yeah, important thing, you must think for yourselves instead of just following a herd.
Yeah, I think that's like just because of the culture where certificate is more valued than the experience. So people tend to get more certificates. Even I did that. Like when I was in 2012 in Bangalore, I did like back to back two internships, and then like ultimately now I realize that that was like of no use. Just like you hardly even know the people in 4 weeks, right? So yeah. So thank you so much, ma'am. Like that was like a wonderful insight. Let's next move on to Avinash, sir. Sir, like you have been working as an academician, and then you've also worked in the industry. You have set up like different law programs, and in India, and like you have experience of both studying and teaching in different law schools. So I just want to understand, like from you that like what's like the importance of this LLM program, like and like how can like people choose their specializations, and like how it can help people to proceed further in their careers.
Okay, thank you, Anurag. See, first we need to understand that LLM used to have a different purpose in India. Before 2013, there was only 2 year LLM program in India, but UGC introduced 1 year LLM with specialization in 2013. So the idea was that we will have 2 years LLM as well as 1 year LLM. But 2 year LLM will not have any specialization. Basically, that 2 year LLM is for those people who are looking for an academic position or maybe planning to go for judiciary or UPSC. Fine. But then in 2013, we introduced one LLM with specialization, following the global approach to produce specialist people for the industry, for the corporate. Okay, so basically that was the idea. However, if you see last 8 years, it didn't work. And as an academician, I can tell you why. Because we failed. We professors failed. Because we did not teach them well. We did not train them. The way we are teaching at the UG level, 99% theory, same way we are teaching in their LLM program. Okay, so I give you one example. I was teaching LLM in competition law at NLU Delhi. And what I realized that their syllabus is absolutely based on the theoretical foundation. I didn't find any practical aspect. So the way we teach at the PG level must be very different from UG level. If we are planning to produce specialist people, if you compare with medicine, like suppose MBBS is a generic program, then you go for MD, MS, then you are expected to be expert in a particular domain. But that's not happening in our legal education. Okay. So the first issue is that our education system completely failed in terms of PG education. And what I found that most of the graduates, even from top law schools in India, including NLS Bangalore, NALSA, you name any big law school in this country, they are not releasing any data about their PG placement. You will never find any data when they are claiming that our LLM in corporate law graduate gets this placement in this company or law firm. Anurag, do you agree with that?
Yep, true. It's
So basically, placement is not happening. This is the reality. And why this is not happening? Because we are not training them for the placement. So I think that's a problem. And especially I can see this problem with students from small towns tier 2, tier 3 cities. They take admission in NLUs or some big brands in this country with the hope that we could not get admission in a good UG level, but now the PG level we will get placement through their branding. So I think it's an illusion. That is not happening. I'm sorry to say, but that's not happening. And I think we professors are completely responsible for this failure. I should not say this thing. Maybe many of my friends will be very angry with me, but this is the ground reality. So what I think about the higher education in abroad, that LLM with specialization must be taught in a collaborative manner. So for example, 60% course can be taught by a professor and 40% course must be taught by a professional. Like for example, if I'm teaching telecommunication law, yeah, so I can teach theoretical and philosophical foundation of telecommunication law. Then I should call Anu to teach the practical aspect. If I'm teaching data privacy law or IT laws, then I should call Prakash ji, because then he can come and teach the practical aspect. Because ultimately, at the time of interview, Prakash ji and Anu, they just want practical stuff. They are not interested in philosophical, intellectual foundations of IT laws or telecommunication. See, they will ask very basic questions that can you do this? And if my student says, no, sorry, sir, I can't, then why they should give the job? And Anu, you maybe, you are a good person, but mostly seniors in this country, they don't want to train. Okay? They want trained people at least at the PG level. PG level. So I think this is my understanding. This is the problem statement. And the suggestion which I am recommending and introducing in India, that first we should have LLM program in niche areas. Like for example, cyber security, data privacy. We don't have any LLM right now. We have no LLM in labor and employment law, international commercial arbitration, banking, finance and insurance, and patent law. Okay. And when I say patent law, it's not IPR. LLM is not in IPR. LLM in patent law. When I say LLM in international commercial arbitration, it's not LLM in ADR. Yeah. So, we have to be very specific. Instead of introducing generic program like LLM in corporate law, we should go with more specific topics. So these are the programs we are introducing right now. Second, Saturday and Sunday, we must call industry people to teach these subjects. When, like for example, if Anu comes and teach 10 hours IT laws or maybe media laws or competition law, I think there is no other possibility that a professor can teach that subject or that way. So that's the first idea, that professionals should be taught. Second, internships must be compulsory part of LLM program. So I tell you one thing, when I was doing my LLM in France, so we had an option. If you want to go for PhD, then you write your dissertation. Or if you want to go for placement, then you don't need to write a dissertation. You go for 4 months internship. As simple as that. Okay. So in my law school, when I'm introducing these 5 LLM programs, so in second trimester, we will provide specialization, and Saturday and Sunday, industry people will come and teach. Basically, they will not teach, they will train. Because teaching is our job, but training is professional's job. We can't train students, we can teach them. And there is a very big difference between teaching and training. I think we need to understand this thing. Because I worked in corporate sector like E&Y, Deloitte. So training is very much required. And finally, in third trimester, students will go for 4 months compulsory internship. So my hypothesis is that if professionals are teaching, professors are giving their lectures, no, sorry, I'm wrong. Professors are teaching, professionals are training, then they go for 4 months internship. I don't see any reason why they cannot get a placement. So this is a very simple idea, simple strategy which I have made. And another thing, we should keep our seats very less. Like for example, in my all 5 LLM specializations, I have kept only 5 seats, not more than 5. So LLM in cyber law and data privacy, only 5 seats. We don't see the problem. There is not a big demand. I know we need to understand that thing also. It's not MBA, it's not a BTech, where TCS or Wipro can hire 25,000 graduates. So we need to keep our LLM number very less, teach them well, train them very well, send them for internships, and at least give them a job. Yeah, because I really can't understand why a LLM graduate should not get a job. This is like a classical case of injustice. After spending 5 years in a law school, then dreaming for LLM, again unemployed after LLM. So this is all about, I think about LLM, and whenever students go, they must go for internship, and they ask their dean and directors that, sir, please call industry people to train us. Okay, because they are paying their tuition fees. This is their right. Okay, so I think I'm done here.
I have like one last question with you, sir, and thank you so much for sharing this wonderful idea, and I'm sure you're going to execute it in a beautiful way. So the question here is like how would you what would you suggest to students where how to choose a specialization basically. I just graduated, and I want to do my post graduation. So which area of law should I pursue as my specialization in my post graduation? So what is your recommendation for that?
Anurag, that again depends on your plan. So suppose you are going for PhD, you can take any specialization. Basically, it doesn't matter. Okay, because in PhD, you can do other things also. But if you are looking for a placement, then try to do your specialization in upcoming areas. Okay, so these are upcoming areas, like the data privacy is upcoming, international commercial arbitration, employment law is upcoming area, patent law is also very upcoming area. So try to do your specialization in niche areas. Okay, if you do LLM in human rights, I'm not sure that which corporate will give you a job. Okay, this is very simple. Yeah. Second, you please see your background also. Suppose you are interested in technology, then data privacy, cyber security is good. If you are very good with people, then you can go for employment laws type of thing. If you are looking at global career, then go for international commercial arbitration. So I think that depends on your interest areas also. But I think this is very much important for every student to ask whether this particular LLM is good for me or not. Okay, and you should talk to your professors. You should talk to professionals. Sir or ma'am, should I do this LLM or not? Because
Okay.
one student, he came to my law school and she does not have any interest in technology, but she wanted to do data privacy and cyber security. I declined. I said, no, you should not do it because you will not enjoy. I know it looks interesting or data privacy, cyber security, but if you don't love technology, don't go in these areas. Then you should go in maybe banking, finance. So I think that counseling is very much required, and choose your specialization as per your interest and your background and market demand.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you so much, sir, for the insight. Let's open the discussion with like the audience. So, if any one of you have any questions, if you want to ask with regards to your LLM or post undergraduation, internships, career options, like please feel free to post them in the comments. So we would love to answer all of them. So if you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can just say on YouTube we can use the chat box. In on Facebook and LinkedIn, please uh, type the questions in the comments, and then we'll answer. We'll try to answer as many as we can. I think like people are taking some time to type the questions. Uh, I think that I should ask one question. So like, it's stick to you, Prakash sir. You said like during the interviews, you mostly look for people like to have good communication skills. Uh, is that something which you look during the interview or during like while screening their CVs? And as far as my personal experience and like my friends like like or like my juniors, uh, very few people get the chance to get that option of get the chance of getting interviewed from their prospective employer. So like, what's your advice on that?
No, so honestly, if you look at the CV, every no one would say that they are not a good communicator. So CV definitely is not the yardstick to decide. Only you decide that only once you have spoken to the particular individual, whether that person, like as I mentioned to you, the communication skill requirements are of course varying depending upon the experience for which you're hiring that person. So if it's a fresher, you would not expect 100% communication skills in that person. So long as that person is able to communicate, it's okay, because that you can over a period, and the person has the capability to learn. And as Anu mentioned, that sincerity element is there in that person. Then that yes, you can bring that person up to speed. And because if you always have, it is like they say now, that if you have the what atta mold, you can mold it the way you want. So if you have a person who is not carrying too much of baggage with him or her, it's easy for a manager also to mold that person, so long as that person has the capabilities. And that of course any hiring manager would easily assess with respect. They would normally not fail or falter in that piece.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much. I think we have a question from Pranav. He's asking, having completed his LLM and with COVID restricted internships in past almost 17 months, how should an individual approach for job considering that he has no background or contact? It's like story of every law student. Like, so
Yeah.
I would request both Anu ma'am and Prakash sir to answer, like since you're from different industries.
So, see, I agree with you. Right now, in fact, especially after the COVID scenario started, most of the companies went into job freeze because they themselves were not sure as to how the future is going to be, how the sort of how are they going to manage the workplace at a subsequent stage, hybrid model of working, all these things. So, for almost a year, in fact, we can safely say now that that year has passed away. That most of the companies were on hiring freeze. Very few companies were possibly hiring, especially the ones who have a regular churn out of freshers joining in every year and 2 years and going out. But now I think I understand that the market has slowly opened up, but yes, it still takes a lot of time. In fact, I myself have got two freshers CV which I've given to different people. I haven't yet been able to find openings for them. And as I mentioned to you, the big MNCs, they don't hire. That Avinash sir rightly pointed out that they always like trained resources. So the big MNCs don't hire freshers. So the freshers normally have to look into either enter into a law firm, or they will have to look into smaller companies and try to pursue that. Like, so that focus has to be there. Like if you are focusing on trying to get inside a bigger company, then maybe your success rate may not be uh, as good as somebody who's trying to get into a smaller company. Then second thing is, you as a fresher, you must also be location agnostic. So if you are,
Mhm.
there are quite a few people who say, "Okay, I want to get a job in Delhi only or Bangalore only and all that." You have to be location agnostic because these days companies are there everywhere, and every company, like the most simple thing which any company faces is labor law problems or employment problems, as you can call, with the PF or labor inspector, especially in the manufacturing sector and all that. And those companies are there everywhere, starting from Shivakashi, where crackers are made. You can have it anywhere. So if you are open to going anywhere, then at a younger age you should be open to going anywhere. That's what I feel. Then you can learn, and then possibly try to understand what is the kind of, like, in fact, my take is that even after the first job, unless you have a sort of family history of lawyers or a family business, and then that this is what I have to focus on. If you are a first time lawyer and all that, and you're trying to understand what is the specialization I should take, my point is it will take at least two jobs for you to understand exactly where you stand actually, or what is your like or dislike. In fact, I had a lady lawyer with me working in our company. She had worked elsewhere also in different companies, and she was absolutely not comfortable with the technology company. But she know it's something like sometimes it happens. You need कि मुझे नौकरी चाहिए तो नौकरी जो मिल गया ले लो. So she was doing that, and then of course when I was talking to her, I was saying, try to find out something which suits you. She jumped into the manufacturing sector, and honestly, she jumped two jobs after that, and now she is the regional legal director for MER and APJC because she loved that job. She was not happy in technology, but like I told you, when she joined our company, also she was almost three companies older. It takes a lot of time to understand actually what is good for you or what is bad for you, and then only, and so you see what is good for you at a lower level may not be good for you when you reach a particular higher level. So that's why I said you have to be in the job for about at least two or three companies, two or three different kinds of jobs. Then yeah, this is good. Some people hate manufacturing sector. Why? Because the legal metrology inspector will come in trouble. I have to run behind the labor law. That is, it is not that that person is good or bad. It is aptitude. I have an aptitude to work with people. I'm comfortable with them. Also because I know technology and law, so it's okay. I'm good with that. There may be somebody else who says, no, I don't want to interact with government offices. I'm okay interacting with my clients. That is his take. So one has to actually understand what is good or bad for that person, and then pick up the right job. And then of course, as Avinash sir mentioned, try to get trained with that particular specialist from those companies, or try to do internship in those companies, and then come up. And then see, one more thing is that we all forget one thing. See, we all think of internship only as internship when we are studying or doing or in college.
Mhm.
After you have moved out of college, that internship gets a different word. It's called networking. Then you must have
Yeah.
the right set of people with whom you're talking and understanding, and gaining knowledge, because at any age you learn. Actually, you always learn. Even at this age, I'm doing my PhD in artificial intelligence, and I'm learning a lot. I keep talking to Avinash sir also, and keep talking to all the other teachers who teach me. You learn. So learning never stops. In fact, if learning stops, then there's something wrong. So learning never stops. It is only that you have different names. When you're a student, you call it as internship. Then it becomes networking. And then when you're pursuing something in academics, obviously then your professors are your gurus. So you continuously keep learning and then deciding what is good for you. And then
Great.
one more thing one need to, the last, sorry, I might be taking
No
you.
problem.
One more thing one has to understand is, while you're, plotted your career, what you need to also understand is what am I going to do after a particular age, after I've retired or maybe. So most of the people, let me be very honest with you, most of the lawyers after a particular age would obviously get into either consulting or get into a law firm. So if you want to get into a consulting or a law firm at a particular age, you're not running your own law firm, say. I'm presuming that, most of us would try to get into some firm. Obviously, the law firm, when they are employing a senior lawyer, they would only look at expertise. So then at that stage, you must have a solid expertise on a particular field, because only then you're of value to them. Or if you're trying to open your own consultancy firm, when you're talking to your clients and you're saying, okay, I'll advise you on telecom law, or I advise you on legal methodology, the first call itself, they would understand how deep you are or how broad you are in your subject matter, and then they would decide whether you should. And then if you're really good, then you don't have to do any marketing, because the word spreads. One lawyer will tell to the other lawyer, this firm is good, they handle my case effectively, or this consultant is good. And then so you have to even plan that actually from your growth.
Great.
While you're working on from a legal associate to become a general counsel, what after a general counsel, you need to plan that also.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. Ma'am, what is your take on this? That like you yourself suggested that internships play a big role in making you qualified for a job. So like, how do I approach a firm, or like how do I, just in case if I'm applying to your firm, how do I approach you for an internship?
Honestly, with respect to us, I'd say that the 17-month period that one of your colleagues just mentioned,
Mhm.
we are a function of COVID, actually, if you were to ask me. We opened
Great.
our law firm during COVID, and we've hired people all through COVID. And our last hire and was maybe less than 5 days back into the firm, and he's a fresh graduate. And I think what the process that we follow here is that we have a contact at anantlaw.com, an email address. Uh, Whether it's an intern, a prospect, a person seeking an internship or seeking a job, they write there. And we reply to the emails and seek interviews. So it's all pretty much streamlined. There's one thing that we've done at Anantlaw, and we've done it with a lot of pain imposed on ourselves, which is we've made the HR role redundant.
Mhm.
So we don't have HR, which means the partners themselves will look at the CVs and see who to call for an interview. The first round of call usually is just on the mobile phone to make the person feel comfortable on the other side of the call, because we live in a virtual environment right now. We need to understand who's the person behind the CV, not the face so much, but the person behind the CV. And we assess that by way of a call. Post that, the next stage is we call the relevant subject matter expert if the person is, more than 3 years of experience. If the professional who's applying for a job is less than 3 years of experience, then we usually suggest them that at our firm, we have a pool of resources until 3 years, which means that you can do what you want to, but you'd still have to dabble with some of the other areas so that you understand where your ultimate career goal may lie, and you don't have to restrict yourselves just yet. So I'd say that we are fairly transparent at that. At Anantlo, there's a simple CV, a simple process that has to be followed. We still have to launch our website, but yeah, that's just about it. It's fairly simple and straightforward. Um, and we are about more than 20 people at the firm right now, and we've all built it during COVID. So I
Great.
believe that may not be the case at lots of law firms, perhaps the big law firms, because all the hiring sort of got frozen up at larger firms. But there's lots to be done, I believe. There are lots of firms that have opened up as well. So all hope
Great.
not lost yet.
Great. Thank you. So maybe I'll share this contact with people who need, like, who are looking for an internship. So if I'm
But
sure, like, if you
Anurag,
find, yes, sir.
see, I think this networking issue or contact issue, this is very common in India. And I think we have to be very candid that 90% jobs in this country are, going through this manner only. Through network, through your contact. I think, I think this is the ground reality. Okay.
It's
Or either through the branding that if you are coming from top law school, you get a job. So my suggestion that during your LLM, please try to connect with people. This is the only way. They are not coming to you. You have to go and talk to them. And I think the LLM students should attend a lot of conferences, seminars, even the industry association program. There you can meet a lot of senior people. And, the more people you know, I think this is the only way. Second thing, in law schools also, as I said earlier, that if professionals are training them, then they have some moral responsibility also. If I call Anu to train my students, and if she's teaching 40 hours, and after 40 hours, if those students are not getting a job, then I think Anu will also feel something. Yeah, this is simple human psychology. So at least Anu will recommend them. So that's
Yeah.
why in all international law schools, there is nothing called placement. Professors and practitioners who are teaching and training them, normally they recommend them. Yeah, Anu, I think this is the global thing.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I
absolutely.
agree with
Yeah,
you there. Yes.
and I share my experience with you. When I was doing my LLM in France, by God grace, I don't know how, but I was the gold medalist. And after my first year, because in France LLM was 2 years, my professor recommended me to a law firm in Paris, and I got that internship just because of my professor, because he was very much impressed and satisfied with my performance. So he recommended me, and I got that internship. So I believe that if good professors and practitioners are teaching and training, and if you perform well in classroom, you don't need to worry about placement. Eventually, they will recommend you. Yeah. So I think this thing is missing in our Indian law schools, that practitioners are not training. We call them only for 1 hour lecture, special lecture, and in 1 hour they cannot connect emotionally with the student. Ultimately, they are also teachers. Yeah. So I think this thing we should develop in our law schools, that practitioners should take a full module like 30 hours, 40 hours. So then they know those students. And if anyone is deserving, then that student should not worry about contacts. So you perform well in your classroom, placement will happen automatically. Yeah.
Great. So, thank you so much, sir, for the insight. I have a couple of more questions. I think we are already, like, 1 hour into the webinar. So there are few questions which I would like Avinash sir to answer. So, few people are asking, like, what is, career aspect in IPR specialization, and like, when should I start, doing dedicated internship, especially for IPR. So if I'm an undergraduate, so for LLM, obviously, we can take the last 4 months for internship. Like, what if I'm into a 5 year or three year course? Like, how should I go about that? Say you're on mute.
Sorry. She is my student only, Radhika Agrawal.
Mhm.
And thank you, Radhika, that you are attending this webinar. So I think you should do internship from first year only. And if you are interested in IPR, then go for it. See, what I believe, jobs are in all sectors. Maybe few, less, more, but for talented people, job is not a issue. And I tell you, employers are looking for good graduates. They are not getting in our country. So if you train yourself, Radhika, placement will not be a problem. Then there are few questions regarding few upcoming areas. Maritime law, yes, this is upcoming area. This is niche area, especially maritime with commercial arbitration. It's a very good area. And then there is another thing is about tax law. I am not sure that tax is very attractive practice anymore, because indirect taxes, I don't know what they are doing nowadays, because
Yep.
indirect tax is not that important. Income tax, again, I think CAs are doing very well. So it's not that much the area where you will get a good placement. Regarding LPO, I think this is again outdated idea.
Mm-hmm.
You should not waste your time in LPO, because after 5 or 7 years, when you want to join an Indian law firm or a company, it's difficult to get a job. Okay, so LPO is good if you just want a job, but if you want a career, then LPO I don't recommend. Okay, and then LPO is done. IPR specialization. Uh, Again, I say don't do specialization in IPR. Try to do specialization in one particular area, like trademark, copyright, patent law. Instead of going for all types of IPR, at least do specialization in one area. So at least you can get a job. And I think it's again overcrowded. IPR is not that much free area now. So if you do specialization in patent law, then maybe you can get a job. Trademark and copyright, I am not sure how corporates will hire you.
Yep.
Sir, just
Yeah,
adding one point to what Avinash sir said, and absolutely, patent is the right thing. And then my advice to Radhika is, Radhika, just to let you know, most of the corporates, or rather the US MNCs, their patents all reside either in US or in Switzerland, depending on their tax model. So they have the US patent attorneys file. But off late, what has happened is there are a lot of niche patent attorneys in India who do these US filings for the US companies, and the US companies hire these people. Why? Because obviously they cost them less than the US lawyers. So if you are trying to do internship, try to pick up some of these firms actually, because then what will happen is you will actually get international exposure, which will be good for you in the long run.
And like I'll add like to it, so to find those kind of firm we can just google them. So a lot of firms come in the news where who are their clients, whom they have represented. So doing a research, so your employer will do a lot of research on you before hiring you, so you should also do a research on them before going to apply, and like create your CV so that like it works out like well, like during the interview or like during the shortlisting process. So I think like we've answered like most of the questions, and like we're also like past 1 hour. So I would like to thank you, all of you, Prakash sir, Anu ma'am, Avinash sir, like for like wonderful advice. I'm sure like everyone
Anurag,
who
Anurag, I'm sorry, but one student wants to know about human rights.
oh, I'm sorry.
I think
Did
after
you
doing
already
LLM
covered
in
that
human rights,
during?
it's almost impossible to get a job in this country. Corporates will never hire you. Law firms are not interested. NGOs, they want cheap labor. So it's looking fancy, but until and unless you have a lot of money in your pocket, don't do LLM in human rights. Maybe it looks cruel, but this is the ground reality.
Yeah. And yeah, in terms of career options, like, as sir said, like if you have the bandwidth to survive, you can do a lot of research, and then once you specialize, maybe you can join some firm as a consultant, but that might take at least 10 years, like probably PhD and all those things. So yeah, there is a huge prospect, but that, like, you should have a bandwidth to survive for those kind of like those difficult years. uh, yep, I think let's see if any other question is missed.
Just one moment, please. With respect to human rights,
Sure, ma'am.
uh, I know there is, Avinash is quite right there, that in the mainstream law firms, you may not find the job, or in mainstream corporate firms, you may not find the job. But yes, if you have the means to survive on little less, then there are several startups today uh, who are working in this area of human rights and may need lawyers. So, if that's where your heart lies, and if you can survive on less, we do
Yeah,
need
then it's a
human rights.
social service, not a
Yes,
placement.
that's
Okay.
right. No, it won't be. It
And
won't, it won't
supply
be
is too
anything.
much. I tell you, in Anu, in our Indian law schools, you will find 50% students are doing LLM either in human rights or constitution law.
That's right.
So I think one has to be very careful.
I agree with you there. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you there. But that's what I'm saying, that I'm qualifying it that if you can survive on less, then there are indeed startups in primary education, etc., who may be looking for legal prospects, or lawyers, qualified lawyers, and you
Yeah, they,
could sort of connect with those and work with them, but they won't have the paying power of a corporate, either an in-house counsel or a law firm. So yeah, be mindful of that though. That's all.
Cool. Thank you so much, ma'am. So let's take time to end the session. I hope I'm not like doing a bit. I'm not hurrying this up. So thank you so much, Prakash sir, for joining us today. Thank you, Anu ma'am. Thank you, Avinash sir. Like you gave us wonderful insights. And I would also like to thank all the people who attended the live session today. If you want to connect with us regarding any query about your LLM or any other help, if you need any assistance with choosing a career option, or you need any assistance with your like LLM, or with respect to internship or job, so I've added my email ID here in the comments. You can get in touch with me. If you also want to connect with Avinash sir with the for the LLM program, which they have started at GLA, so you can also drop me an email. You can go and check out their website as well. Just Google GLA University LLM programs. So I think they are wonderful courses, and nobody has done uh, articulated this kind of courses in India, especially placement oriented, in practical training programs. So I'm sure so do check them out. And if you have any queries, you can get in touch with Avinash sir from their website, or you can contact us on info@rostrumlegal.com, and we'll help you out. Thank you so much. Thank you once again. Thank you, Prakash sir, Anu ma'am, and thank you, Avinash sir.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Anurag.
Anu.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Prakash.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you,
Thank you, everyone.
Avinash. And I truly congratulate you for your LLM program. It sounds like something that the current, the requirement of the current times.
Yeah, I think it's an experiment which we are doing, but
You
we
will
should do
succeed.
experiments in education.
Absolutely, you will succeed in that. I'm sure it's going to be an interesting program for the students and
Indeed.
for the teachers. Yeah.
Indeed,
Yeah, yeah,
indeed.
true.
Thank you so
Thank you.
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great
Thank you.
weekend ahead.